Okay, so the first thing that I think is one of the most important things that you can have in a buyer consultation, besides, like I said, being in the same room, kind of on your environment, your turf, conference room, something like that, is having an actual presentation. So everybody has access to this. I am in the kwhomehubagent.com website. So if you do not have access to this, I'll log out so you can see what it looks like. You're going to come to this website. You just need to create an account, which is going to be your, your email and whatever password you create. And then you're just going to log in here. We have a lot of marketing, a lot of really cool stuff on here. Where I'm going to spend the time today is in our KW marketing suites. So if you come in here, we'd like to start lead with revenue is what we say. So we do have a marketing company that can do all of this for you. So if you are getting stuck on this buyer guide, which is not hard at all, but if you are kind of getting stuck, or sometimes it's just, I want someone else to do it for me, we do have this done for you section. And we also have a pro section where it can really be customized. I use this do it yourself, always haven't really spent a ton of extra money or time or anything. The content is really going to be the same. So there's no reason not to do this one. So on the do it yourself, you're going to come in here to get started. And here the content is really the same. You're just going to pick out which kind of aesthetic that you like the best, which look you like. All of these have the page that I'm going to go through with you today. So we're specifically going to go into the buyer's guide. And you will need a Canva account, but you can do it. It's a free Canva account. So you'll just log in here. And it's going to open up this template. So really quickly, all you guys have to do is customize the first couple pages. So this page, just create, a small bio. My bio hack is to use Chat GPT. Just type in, hey, I need a professional biography for a real estate agent specializing in Utah. Maybe tell it a little bit about yourself. So I usually say, a realtor that loves the outdoors, born and raised in Utah, whatever story you want to give Chat GPT, it will spit out a bio that's super fast and really great. If you don't like it, give it a couple new prompts or create your own, either way. Upload your photo, customize these few little pages here, and make sure you do have your brokerage logo in here as well. So as long as you're adding your logo on everything, you will be compliant. So that's specifically your office one, which are also located on the KW Home Hub. So if you don't have a logo yet, just go to the Home Hub and it's on there as well. So when I sit down with a buyer, and I'm going to go through this whole thing with you today with Chris being my buyer, this is all that I am going through. So this right here, you will see, I'm hopefully not going to take an hour. I'd still like to get you guys out of here by 5. But I'm going to go through an entire presentation just exactly as I would with a buyer. So you guys are going to hear, and I will tell you like, hey, this is a script piece, write this down, make sure you say this. But I am confident if I gave you guys this packet and you literally read the words of this step by step, you could get through a presentation. But there are definitely ways where you want to elaborate and you want to come in here and get some more information across to the buyer. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you. Looks like Anna was able to customize some things. Awesome. Yes, Ryan. Hello. It is much easier if we have a template. So yes, you've heard Lori and I say it took us years to get something like this in our business. So we don't know what we have until we don't have it, right? So, okay. So would you mind helping me move this table? We'll just come right up here. And if you guys have any questions or can't hear us, let me know. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Can you guys see us if we stand here or sit here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So many people on Zoom. So this is for you, Mr. Buyer.
What's up?
Hi. Okay. So I'm going to pretend that I have, can everybody see the screen? Everybody can see my presentation, hopefully. So I'm going to pretend that I have
Yeah.
that in front of me. And so basically all I'm going to do, again, I'm bringing Chris into our environment, into our, conference rooms, whatever, but I'm just going to welcome him, have him sit down, ask him if he wants water or something, and then sit down. So I have my presentation in front of me and I really don't, so give me a little grace, but so in front of me. So I'm basically just going to, welcome Chris. I'm super excited to work with you. I just want to explain the process of buying a home to you. Will that be okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so step number 1 is finding a great agent. So by the end of our presentation today, by the end of our conversation, I'm hoping you're going to feel really comfortable in hiring me as your agent. So this is my script that I say. So I'm going to say, so according to Utah code, we will need to put our agency in writing. So at the end of my presentation today, I am going to ask you to sign a contract. So how do you feel, Mr. Buyer? We're pretending.
Sounds
Does
good
that
to
make
me.
you
Yeah.
feel weird or in any way? Just, okay.
Just go through what you have to say and we'll get there at the end.
Good, good. If there's any hesitancy at all, or if that's why I like to say that we're doing a contract right up front, because if they get nervous about it or they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to make me sign a contract, then we're going to get through this whole presentation and then I'm going to pull out the contract. So by then you've calmed down as a buyer, I've calmed down as a realtor, and we're going to get through it. So that's my script. According to Utah code, agency must be in writing is step number 1. Step number 2, so we're going to talk about your pre-approval. So the reason, Chris Fire, that we want to make sure that we have a pre-approval is, it's super important that we know what your budget is. And I would elaborate a little bit here. I would probably talk about, have you thought about what purchase price you want to purchase? Yeah, you can just.
Yeah, 600,000.
600,000. Okay. And I am taking notes the whole time he's talking to me. Okay. So you're thinking around 600,000. And have you spoken to a lender at all? Have you been pre-approved?
Have not.
Okay, great. So you haven't been pre-approved yet. So I do work with some great people. Ryan from Cross Country Mortgage is who I would recommend. And so what I'll do after today, if you're okay with it, is I'll just have him give you a call.
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
Sounds great to me.
Awesome. And when would be a good day and time for him to call you?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Okay. Taking notes. Okay. And so we really want to make sure that you're comfortable with your budget. We want to make sure that you're comfortable with your payment. So I'm the house side of this. So I'm going to be the one helping you find a house, writing up your contracts, all of that. When it comes to the lender, I don't really know much about your finances. I basically get a red light or a green light. The things that are important for me to know are what type of loan you're using. If you're doing conventional, maybe, is this your first home?
First home.
First home. Okay. So we have great first-time home buyer programs. There's grants. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but that's not really my wheelhouse. I just get a red light or a green light. So I'm going to have him talk to you tomorrow. The other reason why it's super important that we get you pre-qualified is when we do find a home that you love, we want to make sure that we have a pre-approval letter that has to be submitted when we submit an offer to the seller. So, and again, closing costs, we may be asking for that. So it's important that we know all of that before we go out shopping.
Makes sense.
Awesome. Okay, and step number 3 here is touring homes. So realtors, side note, this is where I'm talking about scheduling. So I'm going to be talking about scheduling, whether it be my schedule, their schedule, all of this. So Chris, tell me a little bit about like when you work or when you have time off. Are you more available in the evenings?
I work at 9 to 5. I have the weekends off. I'm available after 5 o'clock until 10 o'clock.
Okay. Awesome. So evenings and weekends are going to be best. So let me tell you how this works. So I'm also sharing when it comes time to tour homes, I'm also sharing my tools. So how do you like to look for homes? How would you say that maybe have you even started looking?
I have no idea how to look for homes. I was just relying on you. What would you say we do?
Okay, perfect. So do you like to use apps on your phone? Do you like websites?
I like social media, I like websites.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect you with my website, and it's going to give you a login and password. And that way you can see homes the way that we do as realtors. That's a script. People love that. So you can see homes the way that we do as realtors. So what's going to happen is you're going to be looking around for houses. I'm also going to be looking for houses. I'm going to connect you to my multiple listing service. So whatever we talk about today, I'm going to create basically that criteria so that my computer can send that to you each day, but you're also going to be looking. So I have a really cool app as well that I'm going to send over to you. And that way, when you're out and about, maybe you want to know the price of a home as you're driving around, you can use the app to do that. So I'm going to get you set up on all of these tools. And so evenings and weekends, it sounds like are going to be the best time for you. So the general rule of thumb to get you into a property is I need about a 24-hour notice. So people, a lot of people work from home, children, dogs, all those things. So even just getting their house ready, we want to make sure that we do give them some notice. So agents, that's a script too. I'm telling him that he needs a 24-hour notice. Obviously, we don't necessarily have to have that. I'm going to try to get you in as quickly as possible, but I'm controlling my schedule here. So I don't want the buyer to think that we're going to drop everything to go show them a house. So back off script. So when you see these properties, you're going to see something that you like, or you're going to see something that I send you. My job really begins once we find the home. So also a script, because people can find homes on their own, right? So once we find the house that you want to see, you're going to, maybe we go out on Saturday afternoon to look at homes. So 24 hours before, it'd be great if you could send me a list of the properties that you want to see. So you can send me either an MLS number, you can send me an address, you might be driving around and like a house, just shoot the address to me. It doesn't really matter. And then what that 24 hours does is it's going to allow me time to research that house and make sure that it's still available. Make sure it fits all your needs and your criteria, and then I'll schedule a property or schedule an appointment to get you into the property. Sound good? Okay. And then I'm going to go down to step number 4. So step number 4 right here is basically when it comes time to write an offer. So when we're out and we're shopping for homes and you see a home that you like, I am going to ask you to put an offer in on it right away. So a lot of homes right now, we still are getting multiple offers. We want to be really competitive. We want to get that offer in quickly so you get a chance at it. When we write up this offer, it will be expected that you put earnest money down. So earnest money is typically 1% of the purchase price. So if you're looking at around 600,000, we're probably looking at around $5,000 to $6,000 of earnest money. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then what happens with that earnest money is it actually is going to go towards the cost, the down payment, all of that. So we will take the check up front. It will be cash, but it will be held until we get to closing, and then you'll get that credit back. And so basically writing up this offer, so it will take about 24 to 48 hours to negotiate this, so I will negotiate on your best behalf to get you what you need as far as closing costs, get the seller what they're looking for. Like everything's going to be different. We don't know, is the seller looking for another house? So I have to kind of rearrange, arrange all of that. So it'll take around 24 to 48 hours. Once we go under contract, that's when I'm actually going to need the earnest money. Any questions on writing up an offer?
So this is like a personal question.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, we find a house and we're gonna put in an offer right away. Is that where you do a CMA, or like how are you gonna determine that price right away?
Yes, good question. And a buyer may ask you that too. So I know that's a good question that everybody might have. So yes, once it comes time to write up an offer, I will run a CMA on the property just to make sure that, that it's not overly priced, or make sure that, you're not overpaying for something. And then also what will happen is after the negotiations, it is going to go through a loan process where an appraisal will be required. So, but yes, I will do a CMA first.
And then can I put down more than 1% earnest money?
Yes.
How will that benefit me? What will that do?
Yeah, good question. So if you were to put down more earnest money, and sometimes I would recommend it if we are, in a competitive situation where we're competing against other offers, I may have you increase that earnest money. Earnest money basically is just to show that you're very serious in purchasing this home. You're going to do everything you possibly can to make that happen. If something goes wrong in the middle of this, my job is to protect that earnest money. So I'm going to make sure that you don't lose it. I will let you know when you're past the point of no return. If we're past certain deadlines and for some reason you change your mind or it just doesn't happen, then the seller would be entitled to receiving that money from you. So it really benefits you more because it just shows the seller how serious you are. Yeah. Good question. Any other questions on earnest money or the offer? Okay, great. So then we're gonna move over to step number 5. Hold on, guys, I have people in the waiting room. Yeah, if you could let me know if you see someone. Are you on Zoom? Okay. Because why? Oh, okay. Make sure I got everybody. But yeah, if you see someone, let me know. That'd be awesome. Okay, so we're moving on to step number 5, well, step number 6, which is the home inspection. So during this time, when we write up an offer and we're doing all the negotiations, we are going to have a date in there that's going to allow you some time to basically do your due diligence. So we want to make sure that you, hire a home inspector, a third party. You can bring in your uncle, brother, sister, whatever you want to do. We want to make sure that you're doing that to make sure that this is the house that you want. If anything comes up during that, like say that you need something repaired, I'm going to do my best to negotiate that for you. And then if we cannot get what you need from this, then we would back you out and also be able to protect your earnest money. A home inspection is going to be something that you're going to pay for upfront. So that is an upfront cost. You're going to be paying probably anywhere from like $400 to maybe $1,000, depending on what kind of inspection you want to do. So most inspections are going to be looking at, things like plumbing. We're going to be looking at the roof. We're going to be looking at electricity, all of that stuff. And then there's extended ones you could do. So if you want to test for like meth or radon, you can test for mold. Like there's a lot of kind of add-on things that you can do.
What would you recommend me to add on certain scenarios or situations?
I would recommend anything that you might be concerned about. So radon is pretty high here in the state of Utah. We can actually get you some free radon tests. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And then, if the radon came back high, it doesn't mean this is a deal killer. We just want to make sure that we take care of it. But some people have sensitivities or concerned with health issues like for maybe mold. If there's any evidence, even a home inspector can give us evidence of like meth and things like that. If we see anything like it, I would definitely recommend that you're doing meth. Meth is kind of high here in Utah too, unfortunately. But everything can be remedied. So anything that you want to do like that, you're going to want to add that on. So
You said that the radon inspection is free. You can get it free.
yes,
What
yep.
else can you get free for me?
Pretty much that. That's pretty
Okay.
much it.
Good to know.
Yeah. As far as free, I mean, we'll negotiate anything that you want to ask for, but typically a home inspection is paid for by the buyer.
Okay.
Yep. So once we get past the home inspection, we are going to move on to, like I said, step number 7, which is the appraisal. So this appraisal is also something, Ryan, I have a question for you here, if you're still on. But an appraisal is something that you're probably going to pay for upfront as well too. So I would say it's kind of 50-50 whether or not this can be tied up as a loan cost into your loan, or if it's something where maybe if the loan doesn't go through, you will be required to pay for that. So side note, Ryan, are you on here? He could be gone. You do? Okay. So Marcel's in the room and he said most of the time he sees that up front. So that's going to be probably like another $700 cost that you're going to want to be aware of. So, and then again, if there's any issues with the appraisal, if it doesn't come in where we need it to come in, maybe the appraiser says that the value is not there in the house, I'm going to renegotiate that for you. So we're going to either negotiate with the seller. You can come up with extra money to pay the difference, but it's just one of those contingencies that we will get through. And if we can't get through it, we're going to solve it or we can back you out.
And then can we get a second opinion of an appraisal?
It depends on the type of loan that you're doing, but yes, sometimes we can do that. And we can also, that's really why I like to do the CMA up front. So I'll have a pretty good idea where the house should be priced. And then the appraisal, which is required by the lender, they're going to get their value of price. If we still feel like we're not on the same page, sometimes we can basically ask for a reevaluation from that appraiser. Yep. Awesome. So once the appraisal is done, we're going to move on to step number 8, which is the loan approval process. So during this entire time, so basically from the time that we get you pre-approved, so you're going to talk to Ryan tomorrow, you're going to get him everything you need. And then once we get you all pre-approved, my best recommendation is don't do anything with your credit. Don't do anything like even paying off bills can really affect your credit. And I know that sounds silly, but anything you do with your money, we just want to make sure that the lender knows about it. So sometimes, parents will give you money, or, you get something that changes with a job, or people get excited, they want to go buy furniture. Just don't do anything with your money for this entire process unless the lender tells you to.
Okay.
So that usually this is going to take, from the time you find the house, you're probably looking at 30 to 45 days, depending on yours and the seller's timeframes. But it's just really important that we don't mess with your credit during that time. So once we get the final loan approval, we will start to schedule our closings, and we're going to start scheduling any kind of moving that you have. We need to coordinate this with the seller, make sure they're ready to move out, make sure that, so again, it's a whole bunch of negotiations that will happen through the process. But I'll keep you informed, and we'll make sure that we're all ready to go. Then once we get all of that coordinated, we will schedule our closing. So that's where we will actually go into the title company, and we're going to sign all of your loan documents and everything. And that takes about an hour. So most of the time, after that happens, I actually can't give you the keys right away. So it does take about 24 to 48 hours to what we call fund and record on your property. So usually, it sounds like you have the evenings and weekends off, so you're probably going to want to move on the weekend and have people help you and stuff. So I usually recommend that we do closing on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, kind of middle of the week. As we get closer, to the deadline on your contract, we'll figure that out. But it does take about an hour. And most title companies, they do work kind of a 9 to 5 schedule. So where you work during the week, we'll want to just kind of plan on that happening the last week of our contract. I work with an amazing title guy, so he will, if we needed to go to your work or something, we could totally accommodate that too. But so basically that's the whole thing as far as the presentation itself. So now at this point, I would ask the buyer, do you have any other questions?
Sounds great to me. You've explained everything all perfectly.
Awesome. So do you feel comfortable hiring me to be your realtor?
Yeah.
Cool. So did you hear I basically said, do you feel comfortable hiring me, and left it at that? So it's really not that hard to get people to sign an agreement. So now I would say, and I have all the documents with me. And so now that the buyer has said, yes, I feel comfortable hiring you, I would go back to step number 1 and say, okay, great. So you remember that I said that our agency has to be in writing. And then I pull out my contracts, and now I'm going to explain these contracts to you. So again, the buyer could be getting a little bit nervous. There's kind of a lot of contracts, and they look kind of crazy, which I'm going to take a break and pull these up on the screen. Any questions on Zoom, you guys? No questions?
What you
Do
did
you
really good.
always print?
Couple questions. What was that? Norma, you go first.
Sorry, do you always print your agreement and always try to get them to sign it that specific time when you are presenting?
100% of the time I do.
What if they're like, no, I don't want to sign it?
If they didn't want to sign it, I feel like I didn't answer all the questions. I would say, okay, tell me more about that. So tell me, is there something you're not comfortable about? So you could even give me a scenario.
What you said today, but I need a day to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super hardcore. If a buyer said that to me, like, oh, I need to think about it, then I would just say, okay, no problem. Can I check back in with you tomorrow? And I might also say, sorry, I'm getting this code that it's asking me for. I might also just say, remind them, we really can't get into any homes without agency. We do have to have it in writing, so I'd like to get that going sooner than later. So I'd like to check back in with you tomorrow and see if you're comfortable with that. And sometimes you will have people that, for the most part, people don't read the whole thing, and we're going to go over it right now. So I usually answer any questions that they have, but you will have some consumers that are like, I really want to read this whole thing, and I'll give it to them and just let them read it and take it home and ask me what questions they have. Yeah. But I really do try to get them signed during this presentation. And for the most part, it's not an issue. Most people will sign it. Who else had a question on Zoom? I feel like somebody else got cut off. Okay. So the documents that I print with me, I do print the buyer due diligence checklist, the exclusive buyer broker agency and disclosure, and the wire fraud. So these are the ones that I print out and I will have with me. Anything else that comes up, we can have it signed during, DocuSign during the transaction. But these are basically the ones that we're going to go through just to make sure that they know that they've hired me, make sure that they know that they have to do this due diligence, all of that. So most of the time I will start with this one. It's a little more comfortable, and we're also starting to show them that these are legal binding documents. So at the very top of this, it says this is a legal binding document. So they can start to realize like, man, I really do need a realtor. Like I have no idea what I'm doing here. So I will go through this and I just say, this is a buyer due diligence form. I will explain this paragraph to them, and usually only like the first sentence of each paragraph is enough to explain what this is. So I go through it fairly quickly. So I basically would say, Chris, so this document here is basically saying that I'm trained to market and sell real estate. I'm not trained, and I will go through this, a few of these. I'm not trained in building codes or zoning. I'm not trained in the use of rental properties. I'm not an expert in hazardous waste, radon gas. And I'm saying it literally exactly the same way I'm saying it to you. And then I will just show them, and this is 3 pages. So I just say, so this is basically saying, if you have a question in any of this, anything outside of the realm of buying and selling real estate, I would ask that you seek a professional in that arena during your due diligence, and I can help you find those people if you don't know people as well. Any questions on this one?
You have your like go-to people for every.
For the most part, we will have our go-to people, and I never I'll refer people that just says, hey, I have a great home inspector, or I have a few home inspectors you can choose from. We don't want to push anyone or steer anyone to use our specific people, but for the most part, they want to be guided, and they don't know. A lot of people don't know people outside of, their profession. So, okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and have you sign here. So I would turn the paper around and have him sign it. The next form, and by now he's getting used to signing documents, right? So that's also why I kind of start with a little bit easier one, like a wire fraud or a due diligence. So now we're getting into the exclusive buyer broker agreement. So I would basically say, so you said you feel comfortable hiring me. This is the document that is hiring myself and Keller Williams, because you can see it auto-populates Keller Williams here. Most of the time I have this 100% filled out if I'm prepared for the appointment. Sometimes it'll happen on the fly, and you can handwrite this in, but most of the time I have it printed out. So I would have his name right here. It auto-populates your name. The biggest thing I see that people mess up on here is the date. So the date, just make sure you know it's the ending date. So when I'm working with a buyer, and I would have spent a little more time kind of in the beginning having you tell me like your time frames, where do you currently live, how quickly are you looking to purchase a home? I would know some of this. So I could determine on here, I really wouldn't do one of these less than 6 months. I do think this will be one of the biggest changes that we do see, is that people will do these for either a lot less time or property specific. So most of the time of my career, I've done at least 6 months here. You could do up to a year. If he says that he's not ready to go and he thinks he's got to clean up his credit, I would maybe do like 18 months. So there's no standard or requirement on the date on here. So just make sure you put it's the ending date. Otherwise, a lot of people will put today's date and you just canceled that. So then here it is the county. So I usually write to be or TBD, which stands for to be determined in the county. And I do this mostly because a lot of people, we border the county so closely, especially like Utah County. And I have seen people where another agent will come in and they're like, did you have this signed? And it's for Salt Lake County. And they're like, yeah, but now we've decided we're moving to Saratoga. We just don't want to leave anything that's potentially voidable. So I put,
Go in and fix that up.
no, you don't have to fix it. This is totally sufficient. So you could do TBD, and then here, if we don't have a specific address, I will write to be determined. If this is the situation where, you know, maybe it is a specific property, or they're like, I only want to hire you if I can get this house, then you could put an address here. But most of the time, I want it to be kind of a blanket. I'm helping you with everything. So then here is the brokerage fee. So I'm explaining the time frame. So we're going to work together, and I would explain just to the buyer, like I did to Chris just now, that we're doing this for 6 months, gives us enough time to go out shopping for a home, gives us enough time in case we have to renegotiate more than one property. And just reassure him that even though we're doing this for 6 months, as soon as he closes on a house, this agreement will be null and void after that. So then the brokerage fee. So this basically, Chris is going to explain that we do receive a commission when we purchase a home. So typically what I charge is I have a $350 admin fee that pays for my admin. And I also typically charge a 3% brokerage fee, which is going to be paid to the brokerage and myself. And what happens is I will be negotiating the best that I possibly can to have the seller pay for this. This does say that if the seller does not pay for this, that you could be on the hook for it. Or it also says that we would also maybe be willing to take. So sometimes we're going to have a seller that's willing to pay like 2.5%. This is just saying that we can negotiate with each other to be okay with receiving that. So, you know, if we have 2.5%, we'll put something in writing saying we're okay to receive it, or depending on the home or the situation, you may be the one that would come up with that extra 0.5%. So do you have any questions on that? Okay. So this, if you had if a buyer had a question, this is where that's going to come up.
To push the seller to pay that commission.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna basically just negotiate with the seller, just explain to them, you know, that you're super highly qualified. So I will be negotiating for you, you know, whatever scenario we want to give them. Maybe you're gonna be moving quicker, depending on the seller situation, maybe they need us to give them more time, like we just don't know. So I'll just be really pushing hard that you're the best buyer for the seller, and, you know, that if they want to work with us, that they would need to pay this commission. Yeah. And just so you guys know, side note, so as of today, it is on the MLS that says how much the seller is going to pay us. So sometimes during this presentation, and this is what I've done in the past, is I would pull up an MLS sheet and just show them like, okay, you can see right here, it says that the seller is willing to pay 3% for this property. You can see they're willing to pay 2.5% for this property. So sometimes I will show them that. So as of right now, that is still on the MLS. The changes that will be happening in August is that cannot be on the MLS. So it'll be more important for us to make sure that we have a conversation before we go under contract, and we should be doing that anyway. So that's where I am, you know, a lot of people are with the listing agent. Yes. Yep. So as agents, we'll just be giving them a call and just saying, hey, are you willing to work with an agent? How much is your seller willing to pay in the BBC, and figure that out up front. Then we can go back to our buyer and be like, okay, how badly do you want this house? They are only willing to pay 2%. It's going to be up to us as agents. Like, say I put 3% in here, but the house he really wants is 2%, and I can't negotiate the other 1%. I'm going to take 2%. Because I don't want my buyer on the hook for that, but that's up to us. Like if you're like, no way am I doing this for 2%, I'm going to have the buyer pay it. That's completely up to you guys as agents, how you handle that. The one thing that I'm pretty certain will happen is right here where it's 3%. So if you agree with the buyer's like, oh, I only want you to make 2%, and you put 2% in here, and you call the listing agent and they're like, oh, yeah, my seller's willing to pay 3%. You cannot take the extra money if this says 2%. So kind of come up with what your standard amount's going to be. Mine will probably always be 3%. You can put like 4% in here. And then if the seller's willing to pay 3.5%, you can get paid that. But if you put lower and they're paying more, you cannot take it. So that's one of the other changes too. Any questions on commission and this section? This seems to be, you're good. You're good. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes, it is. Marcel does closings after the banker's hours, guys. Oh my gosh, and he's driving to Pleasant Grove. Shout out to Marcel. Thank you. But any questions on commission and how we explain this section? Does everybody feel comfortable with this? And be honest, this is a safe place. No questions? Okay. So moving right along, the other thing, and you can see right here that it is in all capital, is I would just, we want to make sure that they understand that commissions are negotiable. There is no standard set by any board of realtors. This is really what a lot of the lawsuits are coming from, is people saying they thought they had to pay a specific amount. So I just throw in there, commissions are negotiable. This is what I charge. I charge 3%. I charge a $3.50 admin fee. If you say it very confidently, and this person, by the end of this presentation, they see that they need you, they see your value, they're not going to have a hard time paying that. And really, it's going to come down to the harder conversation is going to be when you find a house that's not willing to pay. Then it's, that doesn't happen during this conversation, but that will be the trickier part. Protection period. So I put in here 1 month, and I basically just say protection period is, so after this contract terminates with myself and you as the buyer, if you get into an agreement to purchase a home and say that it was due to our marketing efforts, we could be entitled to a commission, and leave it at that. Buyer representation. So this basically says that you have not entered into any other agreements with any other brokerage or realtor. Is that correct? Okay, he said yes. So this is where our chance to just make sure that we're letting the buyer know, they cannot be in agreements with multiple people. Agency relationships. So I explain this. I just say, the differences between agency relationships are, there is going to be a buyer's agent, which this is going to be me for you today. I'm going to represent you 110%. So anything I know about the seller, I can, let you know. There's also going to be a seller's agent involved. Obviously, they're representing the seller. So anything that, that they can do on the best interest of the seller is what they're going to do. And then we also have what's called a limited agent. So this would be basically if you were to purchase a home that I have listed or that the brokerage has listed, we're now a limited agent, which means, we have to be Switzerland right in the middle. And we have to be limited on what we say. So don't worry, Chris. If this were to come in play, there is another agreement that we would sign. So you're going to know for sure if this is happening. Professional advice. So like I was mentioning on the last agreement you just signed. So we are trained to market and sell real estate. We're not attorneys. We're not home inspectors. We're not accountants. So if we have any questions outside of my profession, we just want to make sure that we seek those professionals in those questions. Dispute resolution. So this just says that if we were to get into any disputes over this agreement, that we would go to mediation first. We definitely don't want to, go to court if we don't need to. And a lot of times we can handle this with just a couple brokers in the room. If we were to go to court, attorney fees are paid according to the governing law. So whichever party prevails, and then basically what the judge says is who's going to pay that. So if we were ever to go to court over this. Buyer's authorization. So this just says that you do authorize me and my company to disclose the information of the everything that we do, which is basically the purchase price, any dates, if the seller paid any closing costs. We do have to disclose that on the MLS, and most of that is for like appraisal purposes. Nothing is public. We are a non-disclosure state. But it's really more for appraisers and other realtors to get information. This also says that you authorize us. So when we hold your earnest money, we will put it into an interest-bearing account. And it's only held there, for 30, 45 days, but there could be some interest that accrues. And then we actually donate that money to what we call UAR HOF. So that helps us create affordable housing throughout our state. So it's not a lot of interest, but when we do get it, we donate it. There are no attachments. So most of the time I'm marking there are no attachments here. Equal housing, I say we do not discriminate. We comply by all federal, state, and local housing laws. Electronic transmission and counterparts are okay in this entire transaction. So this usually is the last thing you will sign with a pen with me. Everything else will be electronic moving forward until we get to closing. So just know that that's going to happen. Due on sale clause. So this basically says there are certain types of transactions that will trigger what we call a due on sale clause. And so that basically says that the mortgage may call the entire mortgage due paid in full. Usually this happens during like a seller finance or a lease option, something like that, where the mortgage company finds out that it's not an actual sell. It's more like somebody's going to be renting the property for a while. Something like that could cause it. So we just want to be sure that we know if we get into one of those that it's going to be okay with the mortgage company. Doesn't sound like it sounds like you're planning to do an actual sale, so that shouldn't be an issue at all. Our entire agreement, which is including that buyer due diligence form that you just signed, as well as our wire fraud disclosure, which we'll go over next, is considered one agreement. It will go into effect the day that we sign it. And I know you guys can't see me very well on the camera, but I nod my head. I say, which will be today. So I'm nodding my head yes, and I'm saying, which will be today. And then I would say, do you have any questions on this to the buyer? No questions? Okay, great. I'm turning the contract around. I'm handing him a pen. Most people will do, they want to be led. Most people are going to do exactly what you tell them. So I'm going to hand him a pen and I'm going to say, go ahead and sign here. So I'm not asking, I'm telling. That's also kind of how we can make this a little bit easier. So now he's going to sign that. I turn it back around and I sign it myself. So you can see right here where it says accepted by the company. You as the agent, you're going to sign this. And my point in doing this kind of dramatically is I do like to say this is a bilateral agreement. You're agreeing to work with me. I'm going to agree to work with you. And we go ahead and everybody signs it. And then I do have them dated for today's date. Greg, are you laughing? What's your emoji there? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, because you said you kind of led them to it, and I like that because I mean you're the professional. So if I come to you and I get an agreement with you, I want you to kind of lead me in the right direction. So I put the laughing emoji.
I love it. I love it. It is true. People really do rely on us. So don't ask. It's not, hey, would you be okay signing this tonight? Like we have to be bold. We have to be confident. Nobody wants to work with, like, oh, would it be okay if you sign this tonight? I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, I'll just have you wait a little while. Like nobody wants that. It's here, go ahead. If you're comfortable, sign it tonight. We're moving forward. So yeah, just be very confident. So I'm glad you picked up on that, Greg. Any other questions on this one? Probably the most important document that we need to have signed when working with a buyer. No other questions? Okay. So then to finish up our presentation, I go to my next form that I have, which is the wire fraud alert. I am going to ask them to read it. I will turn this in front of them. You're going to get really good at reading upside down, by the way. I always have a pen and I'm usually pointing to the bullet points. So I'm just saying, wire fraud is crazy right now. So, and I'm pointing to number one. Never trust wire instructions that are sent to you email. I'm never going to ask you to send me any money. The title company is not going to ask you. Nobody's going to ask you to wire us money through email. Never send personal information like your social security number, bank numbers, credit cards through any kind of email. I'm not going to ask you for any of that. Your lenders may ask you for that, but they are going to send you a secure portal to upload that stuff. Number three, never click on any attachments. So a lot of times how this fraud happens is they will see that you're purchasing a home. They'll take like an email from either you or me, and it will be changed very slightly that you won't notice. And they're going to send an attachment or a link. So just be aware, don't click on any of those. Always, number four, we want to always confirm our wiring instructions by personally speaking with the person who's receiving the wire. So how I like to see this done is we're going to go to closing, as I mentioned during the presentation there. We're going to go to closing, and you will be able to receive a copy of those wiring instructions at closing. Go to the bank, go to the teller and have them wire the money to the stuff that's you have in your hand. Or If we don't do it that way, you can always go into the bank and you can stand there. The bank will let you call the title company. You will personally confirm the numbers before the wire happens. Because if a wire goes to the wrong place, there's nothing we can do about it. Not much we can do about it. Number 5, always confirm the contact information for the wire transfer recipient is legitimate. Call a verified number. So again, at the bank, I'm going to encourage you to call the title company. Always take steps to secure the system you're using with your email, such as very strong passwords. So I'm taking the time to read 1 through 6 because you guys, this is really, really, it really is bad right now. We've had people in our offices wire $2 million, $1 million, $50,000, 250. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories of wire money being lost, and there's nothing that can be done. So we don't want to be involved in any of that. So it's a big deal. Make sure this is on every single one of your clients, that you go through this with them. Any questions, Mr. Buyer?
Good.
Okay, go ahead and sign here. Going to hand him the contract, hand him a pen. He's going to sign that one. So that is all that I'm having them sign during the presentation. So then I just basically would say, do you have any other questions for me today?
There's some questions that you see often.
Usually they don't really ask a lot of questions most of the time, and hopefully you guys feel this way too, as we're going through this template, wherever it went right here. When you're going through this, it really is answering so many of their questions. Like they don't even know, like they might have questions up front, like how long is this going to take? How do I get into a house? But by the time you get through all of this, they honestly don't ask a lot of questions. Has anybody else had a different experience on Zoom? I don't feel like they ask a lot of questions. What I would do, sorry, Norma, were you going to say something?
No, I just wanted to ask real quick. Once you finish your presentation and you sign everything, do you go into now the next step is, and what do you do after?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. So most of the time they're not asking questions, but you will have kind of the awkward silence where it's like, okay, now we're done. So I never leave a client without saying the next step is. So get very used to that. It doesn't matter if it's the phone call and you're like, the appraisal came back, the next step is. That's the number 1 complaint of the consumer, is that we don't communicate well. So if you do that every single phone call, every single text, every single thing, you're like, hey, the next step is, they're never left wondering what's happening. Yep. So I literally would just say, okay, Chris, so the next step is I'm going to have Ryan give you a call tomorrow. We're going to get you pre-approved. Once that happens, he's going to send me a pre-approval letter as well as you. And then we're going to know all the information we need to go out and go shopping. So as soon as we get the green light from him, I'm going to get you set up on these tools. So I'm going to send you that app I talked about. I'm going to connect you to my MLS and my website. And then you can start playing around. And then as soon as we get that green light, we will schedule some showings and get you out shopping. Any questions?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in tonight. I really appreciate you coming in.
Just one thing, how long does a pre-approval usually take?
So a pre-approval, they can usually do it like right over the phone. To get you actually pre-qualified, they will want you to submit documents. So if you were asking me as a buyer, I would just say, he's going to give you a really good idea over the phone.
Okay.
He may ask you for additional documents. So the quicker you can get those documents to him, the better. Because sometimes they want to see like your check stubs and they want to see bank statements, maybe taxes, they make it pretty easy. But anything they ask you for, just do it in a timely manner so it doesn't slow anything down.
Awesome.
Yeah. But usually, I mean, if I met with Chris today on a Monday, we could definitely be shopping sometime this week. Yeah. As long as you're approved. Any other questions on this? Pretty simple, right? I think we think it's scarier than it is. And then, like I said, practice this. If you can just practice this presentation, step 1, step 2, step 3, and just know. So if you're taking notes, I'm just going to run through this one more time. So finding an agent, the key point is, according to Utah code, we have to have agency in writing. At the end of our meeting tonight, I will ask you to sign a contract. There's no maybe, if, or I will be asking you to sign a contract. That's the script there. Number 2, we're talking about pre-approval. Make sure you book an appointment, get an agreement on when we're going to have them talk to a lender. Step number 3, the point as a realtor is to control your schedule, figure out their schedule. I give them the 24-hour, I need a 24-hour notice. However, I'm never going to have you miss a home. I'm going to get you in as quickly as possible. But basically what I'm telling the person there is don't call me and expect me to show you a house in 1 hour from now. It's not realistic always. It can happen, but so scheduling. Also the touring home stage, I'm talking to them about my systems and my tools. So my website, my app, basically just how we get information between each other. Offer, the key point on number 4 is earnest money. Make sure they know what is to be expected. So generally a 1% earnest money on step number 4. Step number 5 is really just timeframes. We're figuring out, how quickly we can negotiate this stuff. Inspection, make sure they know that they will have to pay for an inspection up front. You're looking at $400 to $1,000 is usually what I say. Appraisal, they more than likely will have to pay for that up front. Those are around $700, or it could be tied into the loan depending on the lender. Step number 8, the biggest script I say there is don't mess with your credit. Don't pay off bills. Don't go open lines of credit. Don't go buy furniture. Don't buy a car. Don't quit your job. That's really my scripting on number 8 is just making sure that happens. And also timeframes, 30 to 45 days. Don't mess with your credit. And if you do, make sure the lender knows about it. Number 9 and 10, most of that, I'm just trying to inform them, like, don't hire movers. We have to negotiate this and things will still continue to change clear up till the end. Number 10, closing, the biggest thing there is we want to have the closing on like Wednesday, Thursday, so we have time to give them the keys by the weekend. If we close on Fridays, oftentimes they have to wait till Monday, and nobody likes that. So those are kind of the realtor points behind those. So study this. If you go deeper into your packet, and just so you know, this packet is something I give them. So I don't go through any of this with them. I literally spend my whole hour on that one page, but I will give this to them. So for you guys, if you go in here, 'cause tonight you can tell I've done this a lot. It's very scripted. I say the same thing over and over and over again. All the information I'm saying is in this packet. So study the packet. Like, why do I want to hire a great agent? What does that mean to me? What's our competitive advantage? So you didn't hear me talk a lot about me. I'm not talking about how many homes I've sold. So if you're scared because you haven't sold any yet, you never heard how many homes I sold. People don't care. They don't even care like this next one where it's like, Keller Williams is the #1 company in the world. I don't think people care about that. It's really about them. So if you make it more on them and you spend some time, like, tell me about your dream home. Tell me what's going to make this a win-win for both of us. You're talking about them. Do they have dogs? Do they have kids? Why is a fenced yard important? All of that stuff. This just, again, talks about our numbers. I don't think anybody cares about that. Financials. So this just gets you into, a lot of people think that we have to have 20% down. You actually don't. You can get as little as 3.5 or no money down. But if you get in here and study this, it's just going to help you with what you're saying at those key points in the presentation. And you really don't have to do anything in here. So it's already done for you. It's very pretty. Making a list of the homes that you want. What making an offer looks like. Sometimes I will have a repsy with me. I don't always, but that would be a good idea to have a repsy. And you could take a little time here to explain to them, look, this is a 6 to 10 page legal binding contract. And even just seeing it, sometimes they're like, whoa, I wouldn't even know what to do with that. So the more we can show the value, the better. This is what negotiating an offer. This is the inspection. So this is really everything I talked to you about already, just more in depth. So study that. And then you can put customer testimonials in here. I really challenged a lot of people. This can be with your previous job. It can be your mom. It doesn't matter. It can be each other. But throw some testimonials in here, just, who you are as a person. It doesn't have to be a real estate testimonial. Or if you're not comfortable getting that yet, take this page out. Don't let it stop you from getting your presentation done. Core services. So a lot of this is where we're going to put in here. You can see like title company, mortgage company, homeowners insurance, miscellaneous. So I always think it's a good idea to put a couple mortgage companies in here, along with like a title company, insurance person. You guys can choose these. We can give you good references. We obviously have a lot of people that support us. But just ask them for, you know, their headshot. It kind of looks professional for you to have like, this is my team of people. You don't have to use them, but this is who we use, sort of thing. Your team. So here, this is you and your team. So this could be you. It could be your transaction coordinator. You're welcome to put myself and Lori on here as you guys are kind of building this business and we're part of your team. Or you can, again, take this page out if you don't want to present yourself kind of as that team. But those are just some ideas. Home touring checklist. So this is something they can bring with them. They can kind of go through it. They can give you some feedback on the houses. More real estate terms that you want to be very familiar with. So study this, just make sure that you understand how to explain all of this to people. And that's pretty much it. Any questions on the buyer presentation and how to present it? Everybody feel good? Could you do it if I handed you a buyer tonight? Could you sit down with him?
Shake it in my boots, but I can do it.
Chris would be shaking, but he could do it. That would be okay. Greg would be comfortable. Yes, I love it. And I know a few of you on here. Antonio is one. I'm trying to think who else I can see on here. I think Antonio maybe is the only one who's done it so far, but we do want to kind of certify you guys with this presentation. So what I would recommend is that you make this, you practice it, and then you come to myself or Lori and just say, hey, I'm ready to present my presentation to you. Even though like Antonio was super prepared, I hope you're okay, I'm calling on you. Bree was super prepared. And there were still some things that we were able to tweak together to make it a little bit better before you do it in person with a real client. So we want to certify you of that. So just book an appointment, let us know when you're ready.
And
was
Teri,
very
just a
helpful.
question.
Yes.
If I have my buyer and my seller guides ready, would you give me some feedback also on, you know, ways to improve it? If there's anything that I can do to make it look better and be more informative after I pass my, you know, my buyer and selling presentations with you.
Absolutely. Yep. That's basically exactly what I'm saying. I would love, you guys are you're going to prepare, you're going to study, and then you really should still practice before you're practicing on a live person. And then, yes, we'll help you tweak it, you know, make it sound a little bit more like you, make sure you didn't forget any of these super important parts. But yeah, let's practice. And we can practice together with each other, grab a partner, lots of practice. Anything else, you guys? Any other questions for tonight? Okay, so a couple things tomorrow. I know I gave you guys some updates. Tomorrow you have all of your team meetings. We do have Real Advantage titles. So some of you guys know Liz Adams. She will be here at the South Jordan office tomorrow, and she's going to be teaching her, I believe we sent it out to you in a text today, and I think it is her social media class, which is absolutely amazing. So if you missed it before, she's going to be doing it again tomorrow, and that will be in the South Jordan location, and it starts at 11:30. Okay, I will see you guys all somewhere tomorrow, if not just on the call in the morning. But let me know what questions you have and how I can help you.
Thank you, Teri.
Awesome. Thank you.
You are welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.